So we're going to make a start now for the last session. Do you want to take a seat?
Hello.
We did that in 2016, that was fun.
Okay, I know you guys are probably getting a bit tired. It's a whole weekend of WordCamp, so thanks for coming to the last session here. Page builders are a big thing nowadays. A lot of people are using them. So this panel here are going to answer some questions on page builders. So we're going to run through a few questions that were sent in, and then we'll hand over to you guys to just do a little bit of Q&A. But if I can get the speakers just to introduce themselves, and maybe if you want to say which page builder you use the most, and then we'll get into the questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Jo. I am from Perth. I run a web agency called House Digital. We do about 50-50 Elementor and Beaver Builder when it comes to page builders, and we also use Gutenberg quite a lot.
I'm Mick, coming from the Gold Coast, and as you all know, I promote or use Elementor.
Hey, I'm Luke, I'm from Brisbane, and I'm a huge fan of Gutenberg as a page builder.
Oh, I got it. Hi, I'm Rick. I work for WP Engine. Personally, I love Beaver Builder. I've been using that for a long time, and I find that really good, but I'm actually wearing Elementor socks at the moment, thanks to Mick.
Those are nice. I'm James. You probably all know me by now. I run a marketing and SEO company, and I primarily use Beaver Builder and Gutenberg.
Okay, great, thank you.
Where's Divi?
So I do a lot of work with clients who use Divi. I don't set up on Divi myself, but I have a lot of experience working with people who have Divi sites.
Okay,
so I can try and build those ones.
Joe can field the Divi ones.
We could, Mitch, do you want to join? He uses Divi.
Okay, let's do the first question, okay? No, that didn't work. And that didn't work either.
Who's running this show?
There we go. Okay, first question. How many page builders should I use at a time? Joe, do you want to go first?
Oh, I don't know if I'm a good person to go. Okay, so we were exclusively using Beaver Builder, and then I started working as a consultant with the Small Business Advisory Service, which is a government-funded program, and as a result of that, I was helping a lot of people build their own websites, and my experience has been that for people who are building their own websites from scratch, both Divi and Elementor have an easier learning curve. Again, that's just the feedback that I've received from people, but I've also find that Gutenberg's actually really popular with them as well. So for me, I use all three pretty much interchangeably, depending on what the project is. But as a developer, it's really hard maintaining licenses for both. So I would say if you're starting out or if you're running an agency, my recommendation would be to pick one and stick with it. Don't do what I did, because then you have to maintain both licenses.
Can I clarify this? Is it at one time on one site?
However you'd like to answer.
All right, so I'm going to take it differently and how many page builders you use at the same time on the website. Now, you should only use one, include it as well as Gutenberg if you're using that for your blog posts. But if you're migrating from another page builder, you can have two activated, but don't make it active live, and you should always have a staging environment when you are moving or rebuilding your website.
How many page builders should I use at a time? 0. I've found that although Elementor, Divi, these sort of external page builders can be fantastic, they also can be really slow. And as much as they try and sort of say, oh yeah, we're really quick and we're performant and all the rest of it, at the very least your admin experience is going to slow down. And maybe even the front-end output might slow down too. So if you use Gutenberg as your page builder, you're not really using any page builder at all because, of course, it ships for free with WordPress.
Yeah, I'd kind of be the same sort of thing. If you should really, like anything, you should just pick one and get to know it really well and use it to its best. And plus you've got the cost of licensing, especially if you want to go into the pro version. But that being said, there's always use cases where it might not fit that pattern. If you, for example, you may, as an agency or a freelancer, be using quite a few different ones because they have different strengths and weaknesses, and you find that one page you need one and one page you need another one, you can do that, but once again, you bear in mind that's adding more weight to the site, there's more code, it can slow it down. If it's a very simple site with low traffic, it probably won't make much difference, but if you have a very large site with a lot of traffic hitting to it, you want to make that as performant as possible. So in that case, you want to keep the code to a minimum.
What they said.
Cool. Okay, next question. Fill this one for Mick, I think, specifically. Will Elementor ever have the ability to create a CSS grid and advanced animations like Webflow?
We don't know. So basically, you can make a request for features on Elementor on their GitHub if there's things that you want, especially if we're talking about features or animations like Webflow. You can request for features, which brings it up to the developers, and then they look at every request that people put in, and they work out whether it fits into their goals and their timeline of what they want to develop. In regards to CSS Grid, they already support some of those features in there, and they will be, eventually one day looking at adding more on there. But yeah, if you are looking for features, definitely jump on there onto Elementor's GitHub and add a request.
Awesome. Next question. Can I move my content to another page builder or back to WordPress without losing any data? I should say data.
It depends.
Or content.
I know from my experience in Beaver Builder, you can activate Beaver Builder and it takes the content that you had on that page and puts it in a Beaver Builder text row. It doesn't look very nice because it was just content anyway, but then you can create that content and make it better and add things like buttons and other layouts. And then the same when you go back, it saves what you put in the page builder and puts it back into WordPress.
Yeah, I'll go one step further than that. I think the answer is yes if it's simple content and no if it's complex content.
Yeah.
So you will likely lose stuff if you've got, testimonial sliders and stuff like that in there, and whatever you're switching to doesn't have an equivalent and can recognize it. So if you have something in Beaver Builder and then you decide to just disable Beaver Builder and activate Elementor and then activate Elementor on that page, it's going to do its best to try and convert it basically to an HTML block, and you can then turn that into a text block or whatever you want. And it will, a lot of the time it will keep sort of the columns and rows and stuff that you've previously had, because it will sort of detect those divs. But in terms of things like, interactive stuff, especially anything with animations and stuff like that, you're going to lose that. So your best bet is to sort of do it on a staging site, and then you're going to have to manually check everything. There's not really any way around that.
One other thing to note, there's a lot of the page builders have their own functionality built in, like forms. I definitely don't use any of that from the page builder. I'd use Gravity Forms and put the form in, just to keep that flexibility.
That's a good tip. We still want to go? Okay. All right, so my take on this one here is when you are building and you want to move to a different page builder, it's always best, like I said before, create in a staging environment or make a whole new site and build it, because you're going to have to basically rebuild it. And if you're moving from a shortcode based builder, you've got to remove all that messy shortcode and stuff and then still rebuild the post, and you have to do a lot of cleaning. Whereas if you're using something like Elementor or Beaver Builder, it's a lot more neater when it gets turned off, and you can rebuild it still, but you don't have to go doing all that cleaning that you have to do if you're using a shortcode base. And I recommend if you're going to be doing blog posts that you do use Gutenberg or the content, editor in WordPress to do your blog posts. Otherwise, if you do it in Elementor, then you're going to have to rebuild everything on that as well. Whereas if you move page builders or go just to a theme, at least all that content in there stays. And if you want to have some fancy blocks within your posts, you can use a section in Elementor and use the shortcode to put that into your post, so that way you can do other styling if you can't achieve something particularly you want in Gutenberg.
Yeah, I think I agree with what everyone else here has said, which is basically that if you use Gutenberg, you don't really have to worry about it.
Well, on that, I did say I used Gutenberg and Beaver Builder. I actually meant I use them at the same time. So I create like a Beaver themer layout for a post type, and then the client creates their content in Gutenberg, and that's put inside the Beaver Builder layout.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most powerful ways to do it. And then that way, as Gutenberg changes and updates, and they can create fancy layouts in Gutenberg, and it just inserts it right in.
Yeah, some great answers there. Thank you, guys. Let's move on. Is there anything that a page builder can't do that you need to hire a developer to code a template for?
Yeah.
I would say of course, but...
What is it that a page builder can't do?
There's probably a lot of things that they can't do. I mean, it doesn't do everything. It all comes down to each page builder has got its own set of things that it will do. And a lot of them are very common things that need to be done. Sliders, there's some your text box, images, galleries, all those things. And there's some really cool things coming out as more and more. You've got all the blocks, all the elements that the page builders will give you. Then you've got third-party people building more and more ones. Gutenberg itself, it's got the core ones that it's got, and there's more people building more. But there's always something that it can't do. You might have to use a plugin or get a coder to develop something for you, because it's just not a common thing that's out at the moment, and it's you just have to do it the old-fashioned way. But it all depends. You'll find in the page builders that all the common things that you'd want it to do are pretty much there.
One thing, sorry, I would just like to point out that a page builder is essentially a theme, and you shouldn't, I think there should be a distinction between a theme and a plugin. You usually hire a developer to do the code for a plugin, and plugins control functionality, and themes control layout and design. So that I think there should be a clear distinction between that. And then from that, there's very little that a page builder can't do in terms of templating.
I would say that in terms of the template side of things, one of the bigger challenges that you run into with page builders is and I think this goes for pretty much all of them, is that they tend to lock you into the 3 cut points for responsiveness. So from a front-end sort of perspective, when I see sites that have been built purely using a page builder, and if you don't have any CSS knowledge, then it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. You might need to add on a couple of cut points or add a few media queries in there. So that's definitely one of the big things, I think, that we do a lot of testing on usability on multiple browsers and that sort of thing. And then as James said, really functionality shouldn't be something that comes in a theme. Functionality should be something that comes in a plugin. And the purpose of a page builder is really to essentially replace your theme. So a lot of the stuff that you would hire a developer for is typically stuff that is more functionality heavy. It's making websites smarter, not necessarily prettier.
Luke, did you want to?
Yeah, I've got a hot take on this. No. No, to me, this is about your approach even before you get to building out the site. Are you designing the site, in Vision or something like this, and like placing individual elements in a design, and then taking that design and trying to make it a reality? Because if so, you're probably not going to be able to do that with a page builder. A page builder is better suited for when you want something like that here and something like that there, and maybe we could have a slider at the top, and maybe 3 columns would be nice here, and we'll find a nice icon to put in there that comes with the page builder. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's like you could, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, right? Like that's a valid way to build a site, but sometimes you design the site first, and in that case, you're probably going to be better off hiring someone to build it out pixel for pixel as you've designed it.
Can I disagree with that?
Yeah, go for it. Disagree.
I think page builders are a great way to take a design and turn it into a living website. They're pretty, like maybe not last year, a few years ago, but now I think with the Beaver Thema, the new release of Divi 4, which lets you create thema layouts, Elementor's thema, they're really powerful, and I think it's designed for turning designs into live websites.
Yeah, I think they're both valid points, but I mean, really, once again, you've got, in page builders, you've got certain blocks and things that are built in. If you want to go beyond that, you will either have to get a developer to develop it, or you start with a clean slate and develop everything. But yeah, they're both, depending on your use case, they're both valid points.
Joe, did you want to say something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think on that, I don't know if this is digressing a little bit from the original question, it probably is, but there is definitely a movement towards a lot of designers now designing directly in page builders, which I think that's opened up a lot of opportunities for people that maybe don't have development skills. And I think that's a really good thing. We're seeing a lot of beautiful websites out there now, and it's really built a market for page builders, and whether you like them or hate them, I think that they definitely fill a niche in the market. So I see a lot more designers now working with Elementor and essentially just replacing Photoshop completely, so they're working directly in the site, lets them work faster, and it means that they don't hit that issue that that you mentioned about not being able to replicate something pixel perfect, because you're working within the boundaries of Elementor and not within the boundaries of Photoshop.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's move on. Maybe one for Luke. How is Gutenberg going to affect page builders like Elementor, Beaver Builder, and Divi in the future?
Honestly, I don't think there's too much of an effect, because you look at what's happening now is you just go, do I want to edit in Beaver Builder, or do I want to edit in Elementor, or do I want to edit in Gutenberg? And you can pick whichever one you want. But I think there is an important point to be made here about the future of Gutenberg, because right now Gutenberg is completely, you could almost say it's not a page builder, it's almost like a content builder, right? Because Gutenberg doesn't let you go, I want my navigation to be sticky and I want my footer to be this high. It doesn't do any of that. It only lets you create your content on each page. Makes sense? But in the future, Gutenberg is going to take over your entire site. So what we're seeing right now is experiments inside of Gutenberg. By the way, if you want to get the latest developments that are happening in Gutenberg that aren't yet merged back into WordPress core, I'd encourage you to install the Gutenberg plugin. So there's a plugin that's like a few steps ahead of where the core WordPress is. And inside that plugin, there's an experiments section. And so, in a development environment, you can enable these and see where Gutenberg is headed. And right now, there's an experiment to turn your widget areas, where you've got your sidebar and you can drop widgets in, actually make them block compatible, right? So block sidebars, where you can take any of the blocks that you're used to in Gutenberg and throw that in the sidebar. And because your theme is configured that way, you can throw it in the footer. And, moving forward, we're going to see more and more of Gutenberg controlling the entire site layout. I think that says what I was trying to say.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I think in the future too, we may see companies, and this is my idea, it's my personal belief, that we might see Elementor, Beaver Builder, Divi starting to build blocks for Gutenberg. Because as Gutenberg becomes more popular and people start using that more, it would make sense for these companies who that's what they specialise in. And really what a page builder is a way to contain these drag and drop elements that you can put on your page to build out beautiful experiences. And that's pretty much what Gutenberg is doing, but at the core level. And so I can see that these Gutenberg blocks will be developed by and they're starting to be developed very widely by third-party companies. So I can see a day when we could have like an Elementor page builder, but also have Elementor Gutenberg blocks, and maybe that would be the way forward.
Joe, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Ricky said. I think if any of the page builders, if you're listening, guys, definitely if we could see some integration with like Elementor and Beaver Builder and that sort of thing, I think that it's the biggest thing that Gutenberg is competing with is themes, really, in that perspective. If we could use Elementor, for example, to style blocks on the front end, that's a game changer. But I also think if you have a look at what has happened in WordPress core in the last couple of years, they've kind of been attacking it from two directions, and I think that the push is for them basically to meet in the middle eventually. So on one end you've got the customizer, which has been a big focus. So there's been a lot of work done on the customizer and moving a lot of stuff from like the back end of WordPress into the customizer, a lot of the theme controls and stuff like that. And then we've obviously got Gutenberg for the content side of things, and I think more and more they're going to try and converge the two so that essentially a lot of the controls can be done either through the front-end customizer or Gutenberg.
If you don't mind, I'll speak to that. If you think about the Gutenberg interface as it is right now, you've got your individual block, right? When you click on that block, you'll see a toolbar come up, right? And you can edit the text right there in the block, and there's that little toolbar over the top of it. And then you have some controls in the sidebar, right? Now think about how the customizer works. You've got the sidebar there already. So there's no reason why, I think we'll see it maybe next year or the year after that, why you couldn't click on one of the content blocks as is displayed in your front end, just start editing it from within the customizer. And maybe you see a little toolbar just the same as you see in Gutenberg. Maybe the sidebar of the customizer is what you would have seen in Gutenberg. And now imagine that, except you can also do the same thing for your widgets. And you can also do the same thing for your navigation menu. You see where I'm going with that? So what you're saying is exactly right, is Gutenberg has been built with the idea that in the future it will be merged in with the customizer.
Great, thanks. I think it's the last one. With so many modules and scripts, are page builders secure?
I think with anything in the WordPress ecosystem, as long as the code is kept up to date and following best practices, yes. There's going to be vulnerabilities in everything, but the main thing is to keep up to date with vulnerabilities and patch them. And most of the page builders, they've got a hefty customer base. They need to be secure. They need to keep on updating these things. So I think they're as secure as any of the best plugins out there today.
Yeah, I think as long as there's an active development team behind it, then there should be nothing to worry about.
Joe?
I've always got a comment. I think the risk is where, particularly with a lot of the add-ons and that sort of thing that are out there. I know I've done that before, where I've been like, I really want to do this thing, and it's not part of the page builder, and there's an add-on for it. You can download another plugin, but just making sure that you're doing your due diligence on any other additional plugins that you're using, because often it's not the page builder itself that's going to cause the security problems. It's something else that you've used to make it do what you want. So I think just making sure that everything is remaining maintained and you're not just sort of forgetting about it and leaving it there. But the reality is that any theme or plugin is going to bring a certain amount of risk. So just make sure that you've got backups. Like, honestly, just the number of people that I see that don't have backups, like, if you don't have backups, leave right now. You're not going to get anything else out of the rest of this. Go set up backups, all right?
Yep.
I'll just say that, like Joe just said, the page builders are no different to any other plugin that's available on the repo. They're all the same thing. It's just up to the developers to make sure that they're doing the right thing and spending the time and effort into making sure that their content is secure, updated regularly. And I know Elementor spends a lot of time trying to make sure that that is. But like Joe said, when you have the other developers that build stuff that aren't not as constant on developing it, you might have issues. I think that's pretty spot on.
I might add to that a bit further. I think that's definitely true with the add-ons, because even if I've never really had an issue with any of the page builders I've used, but I have had issues with some of the add-on, like even the popular add-ons, which develop add-ons for Beaver Builder, Elementor, and Divi. There's just, you can see that there's poorer code quality than the actual page builder itself, in terms of like things are a little bit buggy, it might not work as expected, and that's where a lot of the issues lie. So that's where I'd be very careful with as well.
That's great, thanks guys. We're going to open up to you guys here. So what we'll do is, if you've got a question, put up your hand. I'll come and find you and just wait for the mic before you shout out. Has anyone got questions? Up the back. You'd have to put the back. If you ask a question, you get one of these. So, Stefan, you're first. Wapoo. There you go.
Yeah, great panel. I've been using Elementor for about over a year now, and pretty happy with it. It's a bit buggy with some things, and other things could be more flexible, but do you see the possibility of like automatic acquiring a page builder like Elementor and just integrating it with the Gutenberg in the future? I think there's been some talks about it online, but just rumors. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I couldn't see it happening. I think Gutenberg is its own kind of animal, and I don't think an Elementor would add any value to it, unless, like I said, down the track that something like Elementor was building some really cool blocks for Gutenberg. But I couldn't see they might acquire Elementor for another reason, but not for the Gutenberg.
While we're waiting for the microphone to get to the next question, I'll just add on. I think that with the GPL licenses, the way that they are, anything that Automatic realistically wanted to incorporate in from Elementor, code is never original anymore. It's all recycled. So I think the things that we will see being merged into core from Elementor, everyone will be happy to see that happen, including the Elementor team, because it just makes their life easier making it all compatible. I don't think it's going to happen that they would acquire one.
Yeah, my question is for the people who are new to this page builder, what is the learning curve of each of the page builders? I mean, in terms of to become an expert, how long does it take to do that?
So I've trained up people from scratch on Elementor and Beaver Builder. I haven't trained people from scratch on Divi, but I have assisted a lot of clients who have Divi websites that they've inherited and they've had to try and sort of muddle their way through. I think if you were building, Elementor I'm a massive fan of Beaver Builder. I really like Beaver Builder, but I do think that Elementor has a slightly easier learning curve. And I think that one of the things for beginners that I think is best about Elementor is that their free version is a lot more powerful than the free version of Beaver Builder. Having said that, for developers, if you want to dabble with a page builder, I still like Beaver Builder better. And we actually do a lot of similar sort of thing to what James does, using Beaver Builder and Gutenberg, and actually just using Thema to create the theme. And then our clients work pretty much exclusively in Gutenberg, so we don't give them access to a page builder at all. They just use Gutenberg. Does that help?
I think it's up to personal preference, to be honest. I find Beaver Builder easier, and I find Elementor confusing. Other people find Elementor easier, but Beaver Builder confusing. It's really up to...
Everybody finds it to be confusing.
I think that's exactly right. Like, I started on a few different page builders before I got onto Elementor, and I didn't understand them. I'm a very visual person, and I just really enjoyed the user interface of Elementor, and I got it straight away. Didn't have to try and learn it. I just understood it and made it work. Divi, I tried that, didn't make it work out. So, it just depends on yourself. Everybody's different, everyone likes different things, and everyone thinks differently. So you just need to have a go. And most of the page builders have a freemium or free version that you can jump on and try and work out whether you can understand how to use it. And Divi, they've got a tester on their site, so you can test that out as well and work out which one works for you. I think it's the best way to go.
Yeah, great advice.
As long as you don't use Visual Composer, you should be okay.
Yes, when WP Baker, you'll be fine.
So we got a question up here.
Question, can you ever actually delete your WordPress site if you want to change it, or if you actually delete it? And the second question is, do websites last forever? So do WordPress have a plan for like the next 50 or next 60 years? Like if, the website I built, 10 years ago, or the website I build today?
Yeah, it's a good question, because it is a really good question, because when we look back, even websites from 10 years ago, they don't even work on modern browsers, right? Often we think we're building something that's going to last forever, but in actual fact, it's probably going to become outdated if we don't touch it and if we never do anything for it. Now, does WordPress have a plan for the next 50 years? Probably not. Probably there's a plan for like the next 10 years or so, but it's an open source project, it's a community project, and I think that gives it legs way beyond any commercial projects. Do you know what I mean? Would you agree? Mm. So, what I would say is that, does a website last forever? Technically, if you continue to host it, yeah, it'll still be around in 50 years. You could still go and access, a website that someone might have built in 2001. And it'll probably be faster than a website that they build now. It'll probably rank better on Google.
Maybe don't look at it on mobile though.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to work as well, and it's not going to be trendy and up to standards and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, websites are a bit like cars. You don't buy a car and think, well, is this going to work in 50 years? It probably won't if you don't maintain it and service it. So websites nowadays are pretty much the same. You have to maintain it and service it, updates, and there may come a day where the technology that you built it on 10 years ago might, like we say, the browsers will outgrow that technology and you need to upgrade there. But you should be refreshing. I mean, from all the talks I've seen this weekend, most of the people say you want to refresh your site about every 3 to 5 years anyway. And to answer your first question, yes, you can delete your WordPress site. Probably don't do that if it's a live site getting traffic. You'd probably want to actually build a site in a staging environment or locally or somewhere else. And then once you have a new site, you can basically swap them over.
Yeah, so 2 things to add to that. Yes, you can technically delete a site if you wanted to remove it from the internet, but it's not gone. There's, for example, the Wayback Machine, which captures a lot of, so it basically takes snapshots of websites, just crawls similar to what Google does, and just stores captures of that. So we often go back and look at, or show our clients what their site looked like 5 years ago versus now, and that sort of thing. And to answer your question about what's going to happen in 50 years' time, my challenge would be that nobody could possibly answer that, because 50 years ago we didn't have internet. So
Where we're going, there are no roads.
yeah, pretty much. Like we can't answer that question because we probably can't even envision what technology is going to look like in 50 years' time.
If you look at
Or maybe even 5 years' time.
Well, I mean, at the moment, a lot of us are doing a lot of our searching and getting knowledge from home, like Google Home, for example, and we're not looking at websites at all. We're just saying, hey, Google, how do I do this? Where's that? You know, what's the weather like? So going forward in the future, where the websites are going to be more, you know, who knows what? They're going to be vocal, voiced, and it'll show results up on a TV screen or on your watch, and you won't even have to like interact like we do these days. So, who knows?
We've had a question at the front for a while.
Oh, all right. Oh, I've got the microphone.
Oh no, who gave Nick a microphone?
Oh yes, that's a bit dangerous. I'm actually just doing a bit of market research amongst all the developer, designer, sort of experts and gurus up on stage. And that's about, with the advent of these page builders, then the selection of themes seems to be less important. And so I've been using the same theme for years, Genesis. And but what I really want to know is what your experience is and your recommendations for the lightest, cleanest, fastest theme that you can use because with a page builder.
I think there's one for Elementor have their one called Hello. Beaver Builder have one, the Beaver Builder theme, and essentially they're just lightweight, empty shells of a theme that do pretty much nothing. And that's exactly what you want because there's going to be zero compatibility issues with maybe like, for example, if Astra is a very popular theme, and there's compatibility issues with Astra and Beaver Builder, where if you have the Beaver Builder drop-down menu, if you put that on the very left, then Astra doesn't move your content, your website content in, it covers it. So, and that's meant to be a very compatible and lightweight theme. So that's my take on that.
Anyone else want to go next?
I just got one good.
I think that, yeah, like James has said, they're picking a theme that matches up to your page builder. Can be very good for compatibility, but I mean, there's lots of very lightweight themes out there, and it all depends on how lightweight you want to make your site. You can get some very bare bone themes out there that can absolutely, totally minimalistic, that will do the job. And because of the way that page builders work these days, they pretty much take the job of creating all the parts of the theme used to do. So, but personally, I would recommend sticking with the theme that comes with your page builder. Yeah,
and I mean, I think you can use the Elementor one with Beaver Builder and the Beaver Builder one with Elementor. It doesn't make a difference. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say as well was that I can change a theme on my site and the site won't change how it looks because I use the page builder's theme builder. So I can change the theme, but the header is specified by the theme builder, and I can change it to any theme and it won't change how it looks at all.
So what's the point of the theme?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's why you pick the most lightweight one that does absolutely nothing.
2019.
Yeah.
I would just stick with the one that came with it. 2019 still has some more compatibility.
Yeah, to give you a solid answer, I'm not going to, just kidding. I think it depends on your experience with code and how much you are familiar with using the theme and how much you want your theme to do and which page builder you're using and so if you're using free Elementor, with a lot of the people that I help build their own websites through the government-funded program, Astra, as much as I know James doesn't like it, Astra and Elementor and Astra starter sites together lets people whip up a reasonably decent looking website for free. So all they have to do is pay for hosting. And like, obviously it's not going to give you the full functionality. But one of the things I do like about that is that you can use like the Astra header and footer blocks. So the header and footer box thing for Elementor with that, and you don't have to pay for the full version. But if you're going to use the full version of Elementor, like the paid version, then Hello Elementor's a great, like completely blank theme. If you're already paying for the paid version of Elementor, then I would say that go with that theme because it's really lightweight. And for Beaver Builder, we were using Genesis, and we found that it was too heavy for what we needed. Genesis is really good if you're building child themes, but if you're using a page builder, I probably wouldn't recommend it anymore. We actually found a lot of conflicts with the Bootstrap code that was in there. So we switched to GeneratePress, and we quite like that for Beaver Builder. So there you go.
Great, we have a question up here.
I'm probably going to hurt your ears with the old themes and page builders I'm going to refer to. I've had my site for a long time. I did WordPress support for a long time, and I don't do it anymore, and I still maintain my own site. And it's actually very heavy. When you say lightweight, I get very excited. So it's on a Nevada theme, and it's got Thrive Architect on it, and it's just, I'm struggling with getting the page speeds to be anything remotely hideous. But the thought, because it's quite a large site, the thought of moving over to something else is a little bit terrifying. Any tips?
So when you say large site, just that it's got a lot of pages, or it's got a lot of images, or a lot of blog posts?
All of the above.
So with the blog posts, have they been done using the builder? Like using
No.
Okay, so they're done using either Gutenberg or just the classic editor?
Just classic editor for most of the blog posts.
Yep, so with the blog posts, it's probably not going to affect you if you move to another site. So what we usually do in a situation like that is we would move it over to a staging site just as is. So we just clone it onto a staging site using a subdomain or something. Mm-hmm. And then we would disable the page builder and anything that isn't a plugin providing functionality. And we would change the theme to something like GeneratePress. Mm-hmm. And then basically just go through and make sure that everything is still working from a functionality point of view. It's going to look ugly as heck. But in terms of the layout side of things, if you're using something like Elementor paid version or Beaver Themer, you can you'd be surprised how easy it can be to replicate designs, because what you're doing is you're essentially just recreating a theme. Mm-hmm. So once you apply that, header and design and sidebars and footers and backgrounds and that sort of stuff, you just do it, and then it's applying to all of the pages. So assuming that you are setting things up correctly from scratch, you should be able to, you're not going to have to redo your blog posts anyway. You're just going to have to create a blog template. So it's actually only one page, not... If you've got 2,000 posts, you don't have to do 2,000 designs. So maybe just pay a VA or something to go through and check each of the pages.
Where would I find a VA?
Onlinejobs.ph.
No, that's the wrong answer. Virtuallyyours.com.au.
All right.
Which is the heavy site.
So my suggestion would be just bite the bullet, because it's going to be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Hi, thanks everyone. I've learned so much from all of you today. Bit of an interesting question. I was all ready to try out page builders. I was very excited. And then I had a good conversation with someone here yesterday, and we talked about lock-in and kind of the future of Gutenberg and how you want to be flexible. Comments on, I guess, the relative lock-in or lack of lock-in of the different page builders. And I also was catching on to that. A lot of them have their source code on GitHub as well. So I'm also wondering, as a tack-on question, the relationship between what's on GitHub and the free versus the pro versions. What's the relationship?
A lot of these page builders will publish the free version on GitHub, and the pro version is like a private repo that you don't have access to, that you won't be able to see. In terms of lock-in, I think we did a pretty good job of answering that in the very first question around like how do you export. I think it's possible. It's not completely locked in. It's not like a Wix site where you can't get your content out at all. It is possible to migrate out of all of the page builders. It might involve some manual work.
I'd just say, at this stage, if you were going in and building a new site, I would weigh up how much functionality you want out of that site. So page builders are very good at the moment. They've got a lot of different modules and a lot of flashing lights and things you can do with the site. And they're very far advanced as compared to Gutenberg, which is just in its infancy. Gutenberg is getting really good. I mean, there's people developing new blocks all the time, so it's getting there. But if you want to have something really easy that you can just build a really beautiful site out of, probably go for Page Builder. But by the same token, Gutenberg is starting to come up. It's part of core for a start, so there's no investment. And people are building bigger and better blocks, and there's the option to even use something like, I don't know, Block Lab to create your own blocks if you wanted to. And would you like that? But yeah, look, I think if you don't need all the bells and whistles, go with Gutenberg, learn that, because that's going to be the future.
Okay, we're going to do one last question.
One question. She's
and
had her hand up
I'm
for
going
a
to let
while.
the panel choose. Who do you want to?
Who's keenest? Yeah, definitely the lady up the back there.
Oh, it's up the back.
I really just wanted to make Will run up the stairs, won't lie.
I actually want to get out of the builder conversations. So excuse me for the audience, but my question is actually around plugins. What do you think is the most important plugin to use, or what is your most used list?
What do you want to do?
I do have a handful of plugins that I install on pretty much every site. So mostly around security, additional functionality. But if you want my most fun plugin, one of my favorites is Admin Page Spider. So you're welcome, by the way, especially Beaver Builder users and Elementor users. Admin Page Spider is a fabulous little plugin that allows you to be able to navigate straight to other posts and pages from your toolbar. So go check it out.
I'm pretty much the same with Joe. As long as I've got something with security, backups in place, and the core functions of my page builders and things like that. When I'm building websites, I build one website and then just duplicate that for every site that I make on my dev server. And then it's easy. I don't have to worry about installing the same thing over and over again. I just duplicate, build out the designs because everything's in there, and then export it to the client when it's ready.
That's good. I try and keep things as light as possible always. So I don't have a backup plugin. I never use one because my managed WordPress host does backups for me. I never use a security plugin. I don't need one because my managed WordPress host does security stuff for me. Of course, I just make sure I have a strong password and keep everything up to date, and I'm good. I always need a form plugin. WordPress doesn't ship with forms, so I like Gravity Forms for that.
What about SEO?
SEO, again, it depends on the website, but if you're really doing a big SEO push, you can't sort of go past, there's a couple of different ones. I go to Yoast, but I try not to install that on a website because actually if you build your theme out properly and it's all about your content, then really you probably don't need an SEO plugin if you're writing genuine content. And I mean, SEO plugins are all about fooling Google in the first place, right? Instead of trying to fool Google, we'll disagree in a second, that's okay. I'll give you a chance to disagree with me. There is a different opinion to this, but I'm trying to keep it light, I'm trying to keep it simple, and if you're trying to compete for that top spot and pushing hard and engaging an SEO company, sure. But otherwise, I just let my content speak for itself. aside from that, I like to build custom blocks, so I have a plugin that I use for that. And I will often also use advanced custom fields. That can be really, really helpful to, again, build out some of the more template-y things. But BlockLab and ACF are more if you're developing the theme and you can write your own templates. So that's me, just Gravity Forms, ACF, BlockLab, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think generally good, once again, good security is always good to start with. Like Luke said, if you've got a really good host with good security, you probably don't need one, but WordFence is actually a good plugin to have just to add a little bit of extra, security. Also, Stream was one I always used to put in because my clients would go into the site and do some crazy stuff. Stream would keep a track of that. And I don't know how many times they said, I don't know why it broke. And I said, did you do this at such and such a time? Oh, I might have. So Stream is a good one.
+1 for Stream.
Yeah.
Stream is great.
And also Hello Dolly. I mean, that comes with WordPress for a reason.
We're going to ignore that. We're going to ignore that right there. Look.
Hello Dolly. Because you can never get enough of the song lyrics to Hello Dolly in the top of your admin panel. That's it's got to be a must.
If you want to,
that's it. The first two I delete are Kismet and Hello Dolly. Because another one that, the first thing I do is disable comments. Because I think that there's almost no reason to have comments on, and it's a major opportunity for spam and also for getting hacked. So check out Stephen Rees-Carter from WordFence actually, did a really good presentation at WordCamp Brisbane on how to think like a hacker. And he showed a bunch of ways that comments can be used to hack into a site. So disable comments is also a good little plugin if you want to remove it completely from the dashboard so your clients don't even know that it exists.
Comments are also very bad for SEO.
Yeah, comments are pretty terrible. And on the SEO topic, first of all, Yoast, if you're listening, get rid of all of your bloat. All right, we're sick of it. We don't need it all, please.
SEO press.
Yoast, we're talking to you right now, guys. So if I have a client that has Yoast on, I actually install another plugin, and I know this sounds counterintuitive, but it's a plugin called Hide SEO Bloat. So if you use Yoast, also install the plugin Hide SEO Bloat, and it hides 75% of what Yoast throws into your dashboard that you don't need. You're welcome. It's on the repo. Go look it up right now. But we actually, as developers, we actually use SEO Press for our SEO stuff. We find it's a lot more lightweight. We have the developer license for it. The billing model is much nicer than the Yoast billing model from my point of view. But I think that if you're not a theme developer and you're using just an out-of-the-box theme, then schema is one of the big things that you're going to miss if you're not using an SEO plugin. So I would say that if you are just using a theme that someone else has built and you don't understand what schema is, then use an SEO plugin. Check out SEO Press, or if you've got Yoast, that's cool. Wow, I just got intimate right now. That's cool, but yeah, check out that Hide SEO Bloat plugin.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hide. Which one? The SEO one? SEO Press or Hide SEO Bloat? SEO Press.
Joe, can I just say that I absolutely agree with you about the SEO thing. I'm approaching this, of course, as someone maybe a bit more technical who is developing his own theme. So if that's not you, then maybe install an SEO plugin. That's not my thing.
How do you make your own sitemaps?
How do I make my own sitemaps?
Do you?
I don't know. No. Doesn't WordPress do it for you?
No.
No.
What about your meta information for your page?
How much do you think that influences your SEO score?
It's nothing to do with score. It's about making it. No, it's to good search console. You submit your sitemap.
I'm not the right person to ask about this. I don't use any Google products. I don't have a Google account. I don't use analytics. I don't use Search Console. Google is, we saw earlier, Google is eating the internet right now. Right? Like they want to take over, and so this is my little fight against that. Let me give you like really short. I'll tell you why Google Analytics is a waste of time, for real. How many of your visitors are using an ad blocker? You don't know. You have no idea. And the reason why is because people use ad blockers, all the ad blockers, they also block other scripts that are running, like your SEO, like your analytics, and anyone from, say, like DuckDuckGo, you look at your analytics, what percentage do you get from DuckDuckGo as a search engine? Nothing, right? Next to nothing. And the reason why is because people who use DuckDuckGo are privacy-minded, and they're blocking Google Analytics. Of course they are. So what ends up happening is this really bad cycle where you're optimizing your website for people who don't care about privacy all the time, constantly. And there's a whole segment of your audience that you don't even know about who you're not optimizing for. So I think analytics is a bad idea.
You know how you thought this was going to be a battle between these two? Turns out it's not. Turns out it's a battle between us two. So I am going to counter that and say I think Google Analytics is a super powerful tool because I want to know how people are using websites so that I can make them even better to use. Because when it comes down to it, we're making websites for people to visit, right? And we want them to have a good experience when they're there. So it's not about, like Google Analytics is not about having data for the sake of having data. It's about having data so we can make better data-driven decisions. And if we don't have that data, how can we make those data-driven decisions?
You don't actually even need Google Analytics to find out that particular data that you're talking about. There's plenty of other free microphone. Locally written scripts that give you all that information that's got nothing to do with Google.
Yeah.
And Piwik is just one of them as well.
Piwik is one, yeah. I run an analytics tool that tracks everything in WordPress and sort of stores it in the WordPress tables so it doesn't go off-site. And it just tracks page views and it's anonymized data, GDPR. I'll just answer what you said before about you need data to make sure you're creating the right experiences for your audiences. Absolutely. I'm saying, though, that the Google Analytics data is bad data and you're making bad decisions because you're not getting the full picture.
But it's the only data she's got.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to search data, though, it is still the best sort of source of data that I've got for my clients. A lot of my clients need to be found on search engines, and statistically speaking, Google still has the largest market share. So my clients want to know what people are searching for when they land on their website, and I can't think of a better tool than Search Console and Google Analytics for that. So I would say maybe it's not for everyone, but there are still plenty of people that Google Analytics and Search Console are really important parts of their business strategy.
I'm thinking it's a good reason we didn't have this question at the very beginning. I didn't give the mic to Mitch because I wouldn't get it back.
Okay, well, can I hijack this just before the end? You know what it's about, right?
Sorry?
You know why I'm going to hijack the mic right now?
Well,
I'm going to get Ricky to whip his phone out.
Ooh.
That's not a euphemism,
no.
Ricky. Just your phone, mate.
Stop.
I know what's coming.
Just your phone. Just your phone.
Just the phone.
So
The phone is
this
out.
has become tradition now. So this is my fifth WordCamp this year, and every WordCamp I've been at, we've done the WordPress wave. So last thing of the day, guys, computers away. That's it. Pack them up. Everyone stand up.
You can go. Go.
That's it. I see some people already know what's happening here, so I just want to make sure you can all put your hands in the air. Everyone can stand up. Yeah, put your hands in there like you just don't care. Perfect.
Like you don't care.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Now everyone sit down again.
Now stand up.
Okay, everyone's sitting down, All right, so I want to hear which side of this room is better. Is it this side? Or is it this side?
This side.
It's definitely this side. So we're going to start off over here, all right? So on the count of 3, We're going to start a Mexican wave, all right? So this young lady at the back corner here, you're going to start our wave, right? Now, I don't want to see any of these like half-assed, like both hands up at the same time. We're going to do this properly, all right, guys? So it's one hand and then the other hand. Can we have a demonstration here, guys? That was perfect, except for James. All right, so on the count of 3, can I have everyone counting down with me, please? This is our lovely volunteer who's going to start us off. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go! Back again, back again, back again. Oh, you guys are really uncoordinated, but that was a great try. It was a great try. Thank you, everyone, for having us.
Thank you guys so much. Another round of applause for all these guys to answer the questions.